And so kind of the purpose of this is to really utilize the space. So you can see right now that this is a 5-page document. And what we want to do is we want to really kind of focus on space utilization. And so we can see if we take a look at this, this heading over here is taking up a lot of room. And so this is one area that we might want to focus on. So instead of having a full third of a page of this document dedicated to just this heading, we're going to better utilize this space over here. We've also got some bulleted lists that are only taking up a half a page, like half of the vertical page. And in this instance, it would be beneficial if we created multiple columns. That way we could really utilize the space over here. We've got this section over here where we're going to add a little table, and then we've got some additional lists at the end. So ultimately, thinking about this page utilization, whenever you can, you'll want to create documents, in groups of 2. If you can make it a 2-page document, a 4-page document, whatever, just so you don't have that additional wasted page. Because it's, again, if you print a 5-page document, in some instances, it prints on, it runs one side of the document and then the other side, and then you may be charged for 6 pages instead of 5. So depending on how it works, we want to kind of focus on limiting it to multiples of 2. And so that's kind of one of the things that we're going to do with this. We're really going to look at how we're going to maintain the integrity of this document, keeping all of this text, but really focusing on maximizing our space utilization. And so I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on this a little bit. So I'm going to bring it closer to where I can, come on, oop, not that far in, where we can I can see it a little bit better. All right, so the first thing we want to do is, right now this document is set on, you can see we've got these huge margins around it. So this 1-inch margin all around, which is fine for like a normal everyday business communication or something. But with this kind of a format, with a newsletter, you really want to maximize space. So the first thing we're going to do, before we jump in and start editing, let's go ahead and file save as, so we can, if we need to come back to a blank document or this original file, we can. So I'm just going to go ahead and do a file save as, and I'm going to call this one, so I'm going to save it to my desktop where I've been saving these files. So it's for me, it's the intro word, or word introductory. And I'm just going to call this one Travel Health to Go. So Travel Health, the number 2 go. All right, so now we've got it. Now we've got it saved. And so now the first thing I want to do is we want to focus on utilizing these margins. So I'm going to, if you scrolled through it, just use your Control Home key to go back to the beginning. And the first thing we want to do is alter the margins. So we're going to come up to our Layout tab in our ribbon. And then in the Page Setup group, we're going to select Margins. And then for our margins, we're going to create a custom margin. You can see we've got several different default margins over here, but we've also got an option down at the bottom to create a custom margin. So I'm going to select the custom margin. And then here, I'm going to create a 0.7 margin all around. So I can either click up here and type 0.7, oopsie, type 0.7, or the other way I can do it is I can, in my custom margins, I can click on this little down pointing arrow next to each number and just click that a couple times. It goes by increments of 1/10 of an inch. So you'll click it 3 times down on each one, and then go ahead and make sure it says apply to whole document. And we're going to say, okay. And then you can see right away, we've eliminated almost a whole page of this document just by altering the margin a little bit. So we did have 5 full pages. Now we've got 4 pages and then a little bit of text left over. Mm-hmm. All right. So the next thing we're going to do, we've got that changed. The next thing we want to do is we want to, so you can see by doing that, we took up this travel health to go is now on one page or one line as well, which is helped a lot. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to create sections. And then to do that, to create those sections, this is going to help us when we put our document into multiple columns. And so the first thing I want to make sure is when we're working in sections, if you come down here to the bottom, so hopefully you can see this where I'm circling.
Mm-hmm.
Right down here, this is called our status bar. And this will give us some really good information about, what's kind of going on behind the scenes in our document. And so you can see right now, I have page 1, and this is my formatted page. I've got this section option to the right of it. And then I've got page 1 of 5. So these are my current pages. So this is my formatted page, and these are the number of pages and what page I'm on. I've got the number of words. I've also got my spell check down here. So this would tell me if there's any errors. And then I've also got, if I'm running a macro, I would get a little notification right down here that would say that there was a macro in progress. And then I've also got some accessibility stuff highlighted down here. Now, the one thing I will say is that if you don't see something that says section down here, the way that we're going to add that is come down to the status bar, anywhere on this little gray bar, right click, and then make sure you have a couple of these things selected. So especially when you're working in multiple documents, we want to make sure we have our formatted page number active. So make sure that there's
I'm sorry, how did you get this?
Right click on the status bar, right down at the bottom.
Okay, yeah.
And then it will open up this menu.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to make sure you have a check mark by this formatted page number, the section, page number, and vertical positioning. Those ones, when we're working with this, I always have my word count and my spelling checker on as well. But when we're working in multiple pages with multiple sections, these ones are really important to make sure that you've got up here. That way you know kind of where you are in this document. All right, so I've got mine selected. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on my formatting marks. So I'm going to come over to my home tab. And then in my home tab, I'm going to come right up here to this little show and hide mark in my paragraph group. I'm going to click on that. And that's going to give me my little formatting marks around, because when I'm working with multiple sections and creating multiple columns, it's going to be crucial that I'm aware of where my section breaks are. And so I want to make sure, when I add section breaks into this document, they'll be indicated kind of in the background, but I won't be able to see them like this. If I don't have those formatting marks on, I can't see my sections. So I want to make sure I'm putting my sections in an appropriate place. So I'm just going to make sure I've got that on. All right, now I'm going to zoom in a little bit because I want to work with one page at a time. And so if you can see one page at a time, great. If not, then kind of focus on one page at a time. So mine's going to be a little bit bigger so you can see it as well. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to come right to this where it says general consideration. All right. I'm going to bring my insertion point immediately in front of this general consideration text. So right in front of that G. All right. And then in my layout tab, in my page setup group, I'm going to choose this little drop down by breaks. And then you can see I've got all these different kind of breaks. So I've got page breaks, column breaks, wrap breaks, and then I've got some section breaks as well. So what we're going to want to do is, if you use the page breaks, it's going to create a break at a page. And so it's
Where
going to—
did you find the breaks?
Pardon?
Where did you find the breaks?
It's in your layout tab, page setup group. Right here, it says breaks.
Oh, 1 second. Yep, I see.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. And so the page breaks are going to break your page. So you don't do this yet, but if I clicked on the page break, it's going to create a page break right here, and it's going to bring in a new page. That I don't want right now. If we need to set a page break, we can do it like that, which we will do a little bit later.
Can you show me again what it will do, the breaks page?
Oh, if I create a page break, it's going to break, it's going to create a new page. So right here, it's got a page break, and then it brings all the text down to the next page. But we also have an option to create a section break. And so again, right now, I've got right here, I'm going to click up where it says Travel Health to Go. And you don't have to do this. You can just kind of follow along with me. If I click up here at Travel Health to Go, you can see right down here, I'm in section 1. If I click down, somewhere on page 3, click anywhere in here, I'm going to select this text, I'm in section 1. If I click down at the very end of my document on page 5, I'm on section 1. So right now, this entire document is in one section. What we're going to do is we're going to start creating sections within this document, because that's going to allow us to create multiple columns and then switch back and forth between columns, like 1 column, 2 columns, 3 columns, etc. So I'm going to click right before that general considerations, and then in my breaks group, in my breaks section of my page layout group, I'm going to click this continuous break. So it's under the section breaks and it's continuous. Now, when I click on that, you'll notice that nothing happens. And if I didn't have my formatting marks on, I would click in there and you'd say, like, what the heck? There's nothing going on here. However, since we've got our formatting marks turned on, we can see that it's created a break right here. And so we've got our insertion point where it says general. And so you can see if you look down here in the bottom, right now it's telling us that we are in section 2. If I click up here, I'm in section 1. All right, so we want to make sure that right now we're working in section 2. And so with my insertion point anywhere in section 2, it doesn't make a difference if I'm on page 1, page 4, page 5, regardless. Anywhere in section 2, I'm going to come to my layout again, and then columns. And then we're going to create 2 columns, but we're going to modify the margins of our columns a little bit. So I don't want to just choose 2. I want to come down to more. So down at the bottom where it says more columns, we're going to select that option. All right, now here we're going to select 2. And then you can see right now we've got 2 columns selected, and then it's telling us each column is going to be 3.5 inches or 3.3 inches wide, and there's going to be a 1/2 inch space between the columns. We want to make sure that we change that spacing to 0.3 instead of 0.5. So I'm just going to click this down arrow 2 times. And when I do that, you see that every time I decrease it by 1/10 of an inch, it adds that over here. So now I've eliminated it from 0.5 to 0.3, and it changed my page width or my column width from 3.3 to 3.4. So it added that 2/10 of an inch by adding 1/10 of an inch to each column. So I can say, I've got that. I can say, okay. And then when I did that, now you can see I've got the rest of my document is in 2 columns, and you can see now I'm on 4 pages instead of 5 pages. And you can see that with those 4 pages, that 4th page is really only 1/4 of a page as well. And so just in a couple quick steps, I've almost eliminated, I changed the margins a little bit, or we changed the margins a little bit. And then we created columns instead of using all, instead of wasting all that white space, we're utilizing that white space now. So we've really almost eliminated 2 pages of this document just by doing a couple quick little things.
Okay.
And so, yep.
May I apply now by myself, or no?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you should do that.
Yeah. So breaks, and then I choose the continuous, or
well, you want the continuous break right here at general consideration.
yeah.
Yep. And then you created that section break, and then you want to change it to 2 columns.
So, also from breaks, I choose the 2 columns, or
no, from columns you choose 2 columns. It's right next to breaks. Right here.
Okay, yeah. I did it. Yep, thank you.
Okay, so did you choose 2 columns or did you choose
Two.
more columns?
I choose two.
Okay, so if you chose 2 columns, go back and choose more columns. Because remember, you want to change the spacing of your columns from 0.5 to 0.3.
Oh, okay. Yep, I change it. Yep. Yes.
Okay. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and we're going to create our page break. So I'm going to change mine to multiple pages at the moment so I can see multiple pages at a time. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is, and again, I've still got my, and if you want to keep yours zoomed out, that's totally fine. Keep yours zoomed out. I'm going to go to the bottom of page 1, and I'm going to bring my insertion point right in front of the word malaria. And again, I can zoom in a little bit. And for this stuff, you can do this with me. I mean, this isn't something that you need to hold off on doing and then come back to and later, because I'll try to go through it very slowly and really explain why we're doing it. But we're going to bring our insertion point down to that right in front of the word malaria in that heading. And we are going to create a break here as well. And so when we create this break, we're going to create a page break. And so this won't be a section break. It's going to be a true page break. So I'm going to come up to working in my layout tab. And then in that breaks group, I'm just going to click the one that says page break or page under the page breaks. And then it adds a page break down there. Now we're going to come to the one where it says preventative options. So right over here, it's on page 2 below that malaria worldwide text box. It says preventative options. And there's a little space right down here we'll create a table a little bit later. But I'm going to bring my insertion point right in front of that preventative. And then here, I'm going to hold my control key down. So in the bottom left corner of your keyboard, hold control and hit enter. And when you do that, that's the same thing as doing page break right here.
Okay, control and enter.
Control enter, yep. And so that will give you the page break right after that little table. And so now you should have preventative options for serious travel. That's at the top of page 3. All right, now we're going to go down to the bottom of page 3, right over here. And then right before the heading, insurance for travelers, right down here. In that one, we are going to also hit control enter. So hold control down, hit enter, and then we've created a page break there as well. All right, got that?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so now we can see we've got a lot of this, we've got a lot of blank space over here. And so if we realize that once we started creating these page breaks, that we realize, okay, right over here, this stuff over here could probably fit over here with what we're going to be doing. So what I'm going to do is you may have to make sure that you have your formatting marks turned on so you can see where it says page break and stuff like that. So in this case, I'm going to bring my insertion point to that page break on page 2. So right over here. So I'm just going to go to bring my insertion point to the left of that page break. And then I'm going to hit delete. And that's going to delete that page break. Oh, let's try it one more time. There we go.
Okay, so delete for it. It's like undo here. You just go back.
Yeah, it kind of undoes it. Yeah. All right, and then I'm going to bring my insertion point where it says that medical kit right over there. And in that spot, I'm going to do my control enter because that's where I'm going to put my page break. So I noticed that, okay, I'm going to have a little text I'm going to put a table down here, but I have room. And again, once you've got more text in this, if you're creating something like this, like a multi-page newsletter, I always encourage people to make sure you enter all of your text first. Don't do any of that formatting and stuff while you're entering the text. Enter your text. And then from there, that's where you really want to kind of build the layout of that. Have an idea of what you want to do, but really make sure you've got all of your content first, and then start manipulating it on the page. So now, again, we're gonna put a table here that is going to give us some preventative options. And if we were doing this, for ourselves, we would know what that table would look like. And so ultimately we would have a better idea. We're gonna kind of move all of this text up a little bit on this page, and we're gonna increase it to one column down at the bottom in a little bit. But again, you just kind of have an idea of how you want things to appear visually before you start doing all this stuff, personally. All right, so now we've got that entered. And again, I'm taking a look at my document in multiple pages again. And so I can see the nice thing about this is that each page begins with a new section. So we can see page 1, we've got our general considerations is the first heading on page 1. Page 2, it starts with this malaria, a serious health risk. Page 3, we've got medical kit and personal items. And then page 4, insurance for travelers. And so this is a very deliberate way that we're creating this document. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and I'm going to do a quick save. Just click on my little save button up there to save our progress so far. And then, did you have a question?
No.
Oh, okay, sorry. All right, so now I'm going to go to Control Home. I'm going to hold my Control key and hit the Home button to go to the very beginning of my document. And then I'm just going to zoom to 100%. Again, for me, zooming to 100% is going to make things a little smaller. But normally if people are viewing it in multiple pages, it increases this, it makes everything a little bit smaller. So just make sure that you're at like 100% or more, because now we're going to start working in individual pages. So I'll kind of zoom in so you can really get a sense of where I'm working. I'm going to go down to the bottom, actually to my Insert tab, sorry. So go to my Insert tab. And then on the Insert tab, in my header footer group, I'm going to click on this where it says page number. So I'm going to click on that where it says page number, hit that little drop down arrow. And then I'm going to choose the option that says bottom of page. So hover over bottom of page. And then to the right, it's going to give you a lot of different examples of page number footers to put in. And again, since we're working at the bottom of a page, it's a footer. At the top of the page, it would be a header. But we're working in, so we're going to choose the bottom of page option. And we're going to want to choose the style plain number 2. And so you can see plain number 2 is going to insert a page number in the middle of the page at the bottom. Number 1 inserts it to the left, number 3 inserts it to the right. We want to choose plain number 2. All right, so now it brings our page number down here at the bottom. So once we've got that page number in, so now you'll notice that since we're in our footer section right here, we've got this one. I'm going to click away from it for a second. You can see it's kind of in black text, like a bold black text. If we look up into our document, the document looks muted. So this green that was before very vibrant, the blue was very vibrant. Now it's all kind of like shaded out. And the reason it does that is so that you realize where you are in your document, because you can't work in your header footer section at the same time that you're working in your document section. And so if I click right here, and I don't know if you can hear me clicking, but I'm trying to click here to start typing and I can't do anything. And the reason is, again, the software won't let you work in both sections at once. So you need to close your footer or your header before you can open up your document again. And there's two ways that you can do that. While you're in your header or footer, you can either in your header and footer tab, you can click where it says close header and footer, or you can come to your document and click, double click, and it will close that header and footer and it will make your document active again. And
Where
again,
do you find it, header and footer?
Well, if you added a page number, you should automatically be in the header and footer. So if I added my,
I am over there. Oh, okay. So what should I do now?
So again, so if you're in your header and footer section,
yeah, I am.
You could either, if you're in your header and footer tab on your ribbon, you could click close header and footer, or if you are in your header and footer, you can double click in the document and it will make your document active and close your header and footer.
Double click on my document. Okay, it's done with me with the close, but I want to try if I double click. Okay. Yeah, it works. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I tried both.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So now we can see we've got, so here's our first page of the document. We can see at the bottom, we've got page 1. We scroll a little bit more, page 2. Then we've got page 3. And then you can see right down here, it's also showing us that we are on our formatted page number 3 of 4.
You know, my numbers, it goes on the left. Should I?
It's over here.
1 second to see. On the left.
Your number's over here.
Yeah.
I guess it doesn't really make a difference, but if your number is on the left, you can just go back to, so click on your header and footer again. So you'll double click down here at the bottom. And is your footer section open again?
1 second. It is open now.
Okay, so now once you've got that open, right over here on the far left, you should have your header and footer group over here. Okay, click where it says page number. Okay. And then bottom of page, make sure you select page plain number 2 instead of plain number 1.
Okay, yeah, I choose the first one. Yeah.
Right. So now does it look better?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. All right. So you can, so again, we can double click, we can go back into our document. All right. And so again, we can see when we're in our document, now our footer is kind of grayed out. And if I click down by my number 3 or number 2 or whatever, you can see I can't do anything with it. It's, I have to double click again in order to make that active.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so now we're going to add some headers and footers to this document. And again, so you can either go to the header and footer to make it active, or if you're in the document, we can go to our insert tab and then choose our header and footer to make it active. Either way is going to work, because once you've got the header and footer active, you have this same option right over here. So if you're in the header and footer, you can use this group over here. If you're not in the header footer, you can go to your insert tab and then choose this option. So the first thing
when I click on the number, it took me to the header and footer.
Yep. Yeah, if you double click on the number, it'll automatically take you to the header and footer dot. Yep, that's fine. So if this is where you are, this is where we can stay. All right, so the first thing we want to do is we want to go ahead, we're on the insert tab, we're going to go to our header. So right up here, and we're going to choose the blank option. So we're going to click on where it says blank, and then it brings up a little thing, type here. It's in the top left, right? Yeah. Okay, so up here, we're going to type reason to go, and I'll reason number 2 go, all one word. Reason to go, health information for travelers. health information for travelers. And we're going to put that in title case. So basically the main nouns in this the main words are going to be capitalized. So reason to go, health information for travelers.
Okay.
All right. So once you've got the text type, I'm gonna come over to this little left margin with my selection pointer. I'm gonna click on that text. I want to make sure I've got all the text selected. And then again, if your mini toolbar pops up like right here, you can use this. If you go away from it, it disappears, but either way it's fine. We're gonna go ahead and change that. So where the font is, we're gonna change the font to the Berlin Sans FB Demi. So you're gonna choose that Berlin Sans FB Demi option. And then we're also going to change the font color. So right here, we're going to change that font color to blue accent 5. So there's our blue accent 5. And then we're also going to center that text. So I'm just going to click on center, or you can do Control E. Either way will work.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, we're going to add a bottom border to it. So I'm just going to come over here to my paragraph group, and this is our border option. I'm just going to click one time. And when I click it once, it'll automatically put in a bottom border because a bottom border is the default border.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, if you wanted to add a colored border, you could do that as well. I mean, you don't have to, but for instance, if you want, you could click right here, and then instead of just clicking that down, just click that little button. You could click this little down arrow and then choose borders and shading. And then where it says borders, we could say we want the single line border, and maybe you wanted it to that blue accent 5 color, and then click it right there. Okay. And then now our border's blue instead of black. I mean, but it doesn't make a difference. Either way, we're adding a border to it.
Yeah, interesting.
All right. So I'm going to make sure I'm on my header and footer tab up here. So I was in my home tab a second ago working with my font. I'm going to click back over to my header and footer, the header and footer tab. Now here you can see that in this navigation area, kind of in the middle of your screen, you have this previous, next, link, go to header, go to footer. I'm working in my header right now. I'm going to click on the one that says go to footer. So I'm just going to click on that, and then it automatically goes to the footer of that page.
Again, sorry, please.
Just right here. Click on go to footer.
But it's like, I feel that I can't because it's
grayed out.
Yeah, it's gray.
Okay, if it's gray, then it means you're already in your footer.
Oh, okay.
Like are you in like number 1 or number 2
yes,
or something?
Yeah.
So if you click go to header,
okay,
you can go to the header.
all right.
When you're in the header, you can use this
yeah.
to navigate between the headers and footers. All right.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, so we're going to say go to the footer button, and then down at the bottom, we're going to select that text. So right now we've got this one. Make sure we have that number 1 selected. And then in here, you can either use your mini toolbar or your home tab. And again, I'm going to click on this font color. I'm just going to click on the A because it's automatically applied that blue color. So that's going to turn it to blue accent 5. I'm also going to click where it says Times New Roman and change it to Berlin Sans FB Demi. And then I'm just going to click away from it to deselect that.
When I click on number 1, it doesn't give me this little box. So is it fine to do it?
Yeah, but I mean, but if you click and select it, it should pop up right for you. But if you navigate away from it, it's going to disappear. So right after you select it, the box is going to pop up, and then you can use it. But if not, just go ahead. Yeah, go to your home tab, and then Berlin Sans FB Demi, blue accent 5.
Right. I tried it again, and it doesn't appear.
And again, this little guy right here, this is called your mini toolbar.
Mm.
All right, so we've got that. So we're going to deselect that text to get away from it. And so we're still on page number 1. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So now I'm going to scroll down till the bottom of, so the bottom of page 1 appears, the top of page 2. So you can see we've got our page number at the bottom and then our header at the top of the next page. Okay, so now we can see we've got our header and footer on all the pages. I'm going to hold Control and hit my home key again. Nope. Get out of that. All right. Control home again to go to the beginning of my document. All right, and then I'm going to position my insertion point over the header on page 1 and double click to kind of select that one.
You get out of the header and footer?
Well, we want to go to the very top of our document. So if you're in the footer right now or a footer somewhere, just scroll all the way up to the top of the document. Otherwise,
because with the control home, it doesn't scroll up. I don't know why.
if you're
Is it because
if you're already in page 1 and you're in, I mean, if you're in the footer, it doesn't work the same.
Yeah, that's. I just want to make
say,
sure that
you could
that's
say
the reason.
close header and footer and then Control home to go up to the top of the document, and then double click up here to open up that header and footer tool again. Either way, we want to be at the very top of our document in the header of the first page. All right, so when we're here, then you'll notice that in our header and footer tab in this options group, there's an option right up here at the top that says different first page or different odd and even pages. I'm going to click where it says different first page. And when I click that, it takes the header away. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So because typically you don't include your page numbers on your first page. So if we scroll down a little bit, we can see that there's no page number on page 1. But again, on page 2, we have this reason to go health information for travelers. And then we have our pages starting again. So pages 2 through 4, it has our header and footer on it. It only affected page 1 when we did that. So that's totally fine.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So now we can go ahead and we can save that progress. Go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and do a little quick save again. And then I'm going to close the header and footer area. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add a table to this document. So I'm going to go down until we get to that preventative options area. And so we can see right here. So it's on page 2, preventative options for serious travelers or whatever. I'm going to select this heading. So I'm going to select right there and the 2 paragraphs below it. All right, so now when I do this, I'm going to create a new section. So I'm going to put this heading and the 2 paragraphs below it. I'm going to change that into a 1-column area instead of 2 columns. But by doing it this way, by selecting the text and the paragraph, the blank paragraphs, I'm only going to apply this change to this section of text. So I'm only going to apply it right here. That way, everything above it and everything below it or before it and after it, all of that's going to stay in 2 columns, in 2 columns. This area right here is going to change to 1 column. So it's going to change to 1 column, put it at the bottom of my page, and shift everything up. So I'm going to kind of zoom out a little bit so you can see this a little bit more. All right, so right over here. And so what we're going to do again is I'm going to come to my layout tab, and then in the page setup group, columns, I'm going to click 1. Bloop. All right, so then when I do that, you see it brings this to the bottom, and then it shifts everything else up above it. All right, so now you can see, now we've got a new section, a new continuous section break ahead of it, and a new continuous section break after it.
Mhm.
Cool, cool. All right, so now we're going to bring our insertion point right in front of that first paragraph mark. So I'm going to zoom back in a little bit so you can see what I'm doing again. So right in front of this first paragraph mark below that preventative healthcare or preventative options for serious travels, whatever. And then I'm going to go to my insert tab. And then in my tables group, I'm going to click on that little table button. So I click on the table button, it brings up this little menu.
Mhm.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and where it says a table, I can either tell it what size I want. I can just insert a table. I can draw a table. I'm going to say insert table. And then when I do that, it brings up this little dialog box. What size table would you like? So I'm going to tell it. So I'm going to, in the first one, I'm going to choose it with 6 columns. So the columns, I'm going to just click up to 6. And then in the number of rows, I'm going to choose, this is going to be 5. Was it 5, I think? Oh, so I want 5 columns and 6 rows. So it's going to be a 5 by 6. And again, you can just use the arrows or you can type in that box. Either way, it's fine. So 5 columns and then 6 rows and then okay. And then it's going to bring this table right to the bottom. All right. Okay, so now we're gonna enter some text into this table. And so we're going to enter the column headings and then the row headings as well. And then in the areas down here, we're going to enter little check marks by using symbols. And so I'm going to first start by telling you what's going to go across the top. So we're going to start with our column headings. And so this first one is going to be disease, because we're going to kind of identify different diseases that you might be at risk of. And then you can either hit your tab key or you can use your little arrows, but we're going to navigate over to the, we're going to navigate over to the right. Then we're going to type vaccine and then prophylaxis drug. Come on, oh, I misspelled that. Prophylaxis drug. And then eat and drink safely. And then avoid insects. All right, and then in our row headings right below that, we're going to type malaria. And then I'm using my down arrows. Typhoid. Hepatitis A. Hepatitis A. Oopsie, I'll correct that. Cholera. And then finally, Japanese encephalitis. And then I'll correct my hepatitis over here. All right, and again, so and then I apologize, it looks like my little internet connection is wavering a little bit over here. But again, our column headings, disease, vaccine, prophylaxis drug, eat and drink safely, avoid insects, and then our row headings, malaria, typhoid, hepatitis A, cholera, and then Japanese encephalitis. Now it's okay that these are kind of running onto a second line. We're going to kind of auto fit this in a little bit. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and we're going to insert symbols into these, whatever applies to these different diseases, we're going to insert a little check into those. And so to do that, I'm gonna go by rows. So in the malaria row, the things that are effective for malaria are a prophylaxis drug and avoiding insects. So I'm gonna bring my insertion point into prophylaxis drug into this cell. And once there, I'm gonna go to my insert tab. And then way over on the far right, or the far right, I've got this symbols group. So I've got equations and I have symbols. I'm going to click on that little symbols option, and then I'm going to choose more symbols. And then when I do that, it's going to bring up this symbol dialog box. All right. And so I can see right here in my recently used ones, there's this little check mark right here, and I'm going to choose that. But if yours didn't choose that, you can go to change this right here where it says from, make sure it says symbol decimal. So like if you click on this little down pointing arrow, whoopsie, where'd it go? All right, and again, so I'm in the normal text basic Latin subset, and then, come on, and then I'm in my symbol group, and I want character code 252.
1 second, you said you are in the basic Latin or?
Yep. So, come on.
Okay. What should I?
Or it's all, or you can go, so if you go to normal text, it's right, where is it? And so you can see there's a huge gallery to choose from.
Yeah.
And where is it over here? But it's going to be so it's character code 252 right here. And where did it go? So again here, so I'll choose my, or if you come over where it says font right up there, if you choose the symbol option, there's going to be an option like right over, where did it go? It's going to say symbol over in the font group. And again, some of this, once you use this one time, it's going to be easier to, it'll be easier to find it. So it's in the symbol, and then we're going to scroll down a little. Where the heck did it go?
I can't see now. Under symbol.
Yeah. Where is? Yeah, so mine is under it's under the font symbol, and then in the over here, it's in the symbol, it's on symbol decimal, and then 252 is the code. But I think it's also available in the wingdings. So if you scroll all the way down, or if you type wingdings.
I'm on the same area, but I didn't see it. I see.
So if you choose wingdings, so right here where it says font, go down to the bottom to wingdings. And then once you've got wingdings, if you type character code 252, it should come up, but it's near the bottom in the wingdings section.
Yeah, it opens the same area.
So did you get?
I find. Yeah, I got.
You got it? Okay, so click on it once and then say insert. And then it's going to bring that little check mark right in here.
When I press insert is just.
So if you pushed insert, then then close that little dialog box, and it should be in there.
Oh yeah, I found it.
Right?
I have 4 now.
Okay, yeah, because you kept clicking it, right?
Yeah, I kept
Yeah,
clicking.
which is totally fine. You can hit backspace a couple times. So now once you've found the one that you want, now it's really easy to get back to it.
Yeah.
And again, like when you do this, if where you're inserting it is behind that little dialog box, you can't actually see that you're doing it. But so, okay, so now we're going to come over where it says avoid insects. And then I'm going to do the same thing, only this time I'm going to click on that little symbol, that omega. And then the first thing up here is going to be that check mark. Right? Okay, then you just click on it. And then it's going to put that check mark there. So now we're going to come over to, we're going to do that typhoid row. So vaccine, again, I'm going to go symbol, check mark. And then eat and drink safely is going to be the check mark there as well. And then hepatitis A for vaccine, that symbol, check mark. Then cholera in that vaccine is going to get the symbol check mark. And then also eat and drink safely is going to get a check mark. And then finally for Japanese encephalitis, that's going to get the check mark under vaccine and avoid insects. All right, so I've got all this text in here. I'm going to, just for a moment, I'm going to go over and I'm going to turn off my formatting marks so I can just see the check marks to make sure I've got them in the right spot without all those little column indicators.
Yeah. But maybe we need to bring them to the middle of.
Yep, we'll do that in just a second. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is, just like you suggested, we're going to highlight this area right here. So I'm just going to bring my insertion point right under this vaccine malaria, click right over here. And then in my table layout, I'm going to come over here where in the alignment group, and I'm going to align them in the center. And it's going to center them horizontally and vertically in that cell.
Excuse me, I have a call. Can I answer it?
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm with you.
Yep. All right. So we've got this. So did you get this centered?
Not yet. Yeah.
Okay.
So highlighted.
So, all right. So let's select that, all that, and then in your table layout tab over here. So right to the right.
Layout.
Yep. In this alignment group, click on the one in the middle. So you're going to align center. And so it's going to align the bullet, those little check marks in the center horizontally and vertically.
I don't have alignment here. Where is the alignment group?
It's going to be between cell size and data. So you might just have these little boxes or something, but it's going to be in the table.
Under layout, I have page layout. Setup, paragraph, and arrange.
Nope. You don't want the layout tab. You want the table layout tab, way over on the right.
Oh yeah, I got it. Okay, so what should I select now?
You want in the alignment group, you want center align. So the one in the middle, it's kind of like the middle square of this tic-tac-toe board.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, then it's going to center all those little check marks.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're going to click right up in this table. We're going to click up in the corner, and then I'm going to go to my table design tab. Not the design tab over here, but the table design tab. And then here, I'm going to choose a table style. So I'm going to choose the table style, the list table 3. So I'm going to go right here. You can see we've got plain tables, grid tables, and list tables. I'm going to choose the list table number 3, and then the accent number 5. So it's going to be yours might look a little bit different. You might have individual rows like list table 1, 2, 3, but it's going to look like this: list table 3, accent 5. So I'm going to select that, and then you'll see it gives us a heading, like a table heading right here. And then we've got our first row is differentiated by being in bold text. All right, and then also with this selected, I'm going to make sure it's selected. And then in my layout tab, the table layout tab, not the layout tab over here, my table layout tab, I'm going to go to this cell size group, and where it says auto fit, I'm going to click on that little drop down, and I've got a couple different options. I'm going to choose the auto fit contents. All right, so I click auto fit contents, and what the auto fit contents does is it automatically fits the contents of the text, or the contents of this table, within the table. And so you can see it kind of shrunk everything down, but now everything's on a single line. So now that I've got it on a single line, I'm going to hit this auto fit again, and I'm going to select auto fit window. And then when I do the auto fit window, it's automatically going to resize this table so it encompasses this whole page width instead of just that little portion. So again, the first thing I did was auto fit contents to make everything appear on one line, and then auto fit window to make everything go back to the full page width.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. And so we can make sure I'm going to choose this vaccine prophylaxis, this area, and I'm going to make sure that this is centered, and I'm going to choose this top one. So it says align top center, just so I keep everything aligned together. All right. So now we've got that taken care of. I'm going to go ahead and do a quick save to save the progress. All right, so now I'm gonna go out to my view tab. I'm gonna look at this document, how we've got it right now. So I'm gonna look at multiple pages. And so I can see right now it looks pretty good. You know, we've got our pages are basically full. There's not a whole lot of blank white space on them. So we're doing a very good job utilizing our pages. Right here, since we're gonna put some footnotes in here, this is gonna be where we'll put our references in just a minute. All right, so I'm going to come back out to zoom to one page, or zoom to 100%, or a little bit more for me, but I'll come back out. And now we're going to go ahead and we're going to add some footnotes and endnotes. And so the difference between a footnote and an endnote, a footnote is going to it's going to be a little like reference note about an item on a page, and it's going to put it at the bottom of the page, in almost like a footer section. An endnote is going to be a note that'll go at the very end of our document. And again, so a footnote's just going to be a basic explanatory note that's going to be linked to a specific reference in the document, and then that end note is going to be referenced at the very end of it. So the first thing we're going to do, I'm going to go Control Home to go to the beginning of my document again, and I'm going to put the insertion point at the end of the first paragraph in the second column. All right, so right after where it says resort. All right, and again, so I'm creating a footnote. So footnotes and endnotes are going to come after the period within a sentence. If I'm doing a citation, like citing a source, that's going to come before the period. But right now we're doing a footnote and endnote. Those will always come after the period. So I'm going to bring my insertion point after the word resort and that final period. And then I'm going to come up to my reference tab. And then in that reference group, I'm going to go to my insert footnote. So that's going to be right over here in this footnote. I'm going to say insert footnote. So when I click that, you can see it brings me down to the bottom of my page. It's got a little 1 here. And then I've got my little blinking insertion point. So here I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to type the text for this footnote. So it's behavior is a critical factor. and then period. That's a sentence. And then, for example, comma, outdoor, going outdoors in a malaria endemic area. So going outdoors in a malaria endemic area, and that's hyphenated, malaria endemic, could result in becoming infected, period. All right, so that footnote, behavior is a critical factor, period. For example, comma, going outdoors in a malaria endemic area could result in becoming infected. All right, so I've got that first footnote in. So now I'm going to bring my insertion point to the end of the second column of text. So right down here, medical consultation before travel, after the word health and the period thereafter. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to click on that insert footnote again. Now you'll see this time it brings in a number 2. And then you'll see right up here, we've got this little 2 in our document. And the footnote for this, the text is, it is best to consult a travel medicine specialist. Period. It is best to consult a travel medicine specialist, period. All right, so I'm going to scroll up a little bit. So now you'll see when I come up here to this first paragraph in the second column, this where it ends with conference center for or a resort. If I hover over that number 1, you'll see it gives me a little screen tip. And so it gives me, it turns my insertion point into like a little, it looks like a little note card. And then it also gives me the text, behavior is a critical factor. So so if I hover over that, it gives me the text of my footnote. If I click on it, come on. All right, so if I click on it, it brings me down to the text in that footer section. And so that's what when we're talking about linking. And then again, I can double click on the number 1 down there, and then it brings me up to where that footnote is within my document. And so that number 1 up here and the number 1 down here are linked together. All right, and so then I've got my number 2 footnote. All right, so now I'm going to go scroll down to the bottom of page 3. So here I'm on, that's page 2. So go to the bottom of page 3, and where we've got our medications. So right down here, medication in high altitude sickness, medications on a regular basis, blah, blah, blah. So where it says medications taken on a regular basis at home, after that, we're going to bring our insertion point. And then again, we're going to add another footnote. So we're going to come up in our references tab, footnotes group. I'm going to click on insert footnote. Does the same thing. Now I'm on footnote number 3. And again, it will put them in like chronological order within the document. So we started at the beginning, we'll keep navigating through. Now we're on footnote number 3. This text of this footnote will say, all medications should be stored in carry-on luggage. Comma, in their original containers and labeled clearly. Period. All right, all medications should be stored in carry-on luggage, carry-on is hyphenated, comma, in their original containers and labeled clearly. And then we can period at the end of that because that's a sentence. All right, so now in this first 8, is it the first 8 item section? Let me look at it. We've got sun. I think it's in that first, let me see, it's where the, Oh, right, no, right down here. So it's a couple below it. So it's sunscreen, right where it says sunscreen. So it's like 5 bullets after it. I'm going to insert another footnote. And the footnote text for this one is SPF 15 or greater. So SPF 15 or greater, period. All right, so now we're on footnote number 4. Okay, now the nice thing about this is, and again, if you like me, when I was growing up and I had to write research papers and things like this, I had to type all these footnotes in myself. Now it links everything together. It's so it's so convenient. All right, and so now, if I made a mistake, like, you know what, I need to add another footnote, and it's going to be in this where this talks about these gloves and stuff. So right over here, we've got disposable gloves. So I need to add a footnote over here, but I'm already way past it in my numeration. So this one's coming before 3 and 4. I don't want it to be number 5. If I click there where it says disposable gloves, and then I insert my footnote, boom. So now it renumbers all the footnotes after it. So the
Mm.
original footnote number 3 is now footnote number 4, and footnote number 4 is now number 5. And so I can continue numbering where I left off. And so this one, I'm going to type the text, at least 2 pairs, period. At least 2 pairs. And then I'm going to come down to the one that says scissors, safety pins, and tweezers. So near the bottom of that column. And then I'm going to insert another footnote. And again, it renumbers everything and it lists them on the page. And then this one is going to say, pack these items in checked luggage. Pack these items in checked luggage. All right, so once I've got that text entered, I'm going to do my Control Home again to go to the beginning of my document. And now I'm going to use my navigation to navigate through these footnotes. So again, I'm still in my reference tab. And then right up here, so I'm at the beginning of my document. I'm just going to come up to this footnotes group, and I'm going to click on where it says next footnote. So I'm just going to click on that. And then you can see it brings me to this first footnote. If I hover over it, again, it tells me what that footnote is.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So then I'm going to click on my next footnote again. Brings me to that next one. So the public health, blah, blah, yep. Best to consult a travel medicine specialist. Okay. I'm going to click on that next one. And then now I'm on footnote number 3, disposable gloves. Then I realize, you know what? This footnote isn't that necessary. So I'm going to eliminate it. So I've got my insertion point right over here by this little number 3. I'm going to hit my delete key 1 time. So I hit the delete key once, and then it will select that little footnote number.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to select delete 1 more time. So click delete again. Boop. And then when I take that out, it eliminates, I deleted the number, it eliminated all the text of that footnote, and then it renumbered everything after it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really, really convenient.
Yeah.
All right. So now I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to save my changes. And then now I'm going to go back to my Control Home to go to the top of my document again. And now I'm going to insert a couple citations in here. And so again, when I was growing up, adding citations to my documents, I would have to type everything out and like type it in the document, type it at the end on my reference page. I mean, it was a drag doing it over and over and over again. And then if you made a mistake, you'd have to retype the whole thing, retype that whole insert the reference page. Now it's really, really simple. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm at the beginning of my document. I'm going to scroll down a little bit. It's going to be at the end of that first paragraph, the first paragraph of the first column of text. So I've got this, the religious pilgrimages and family visits cited as major reasons people travel, right? So I'm going to bring my insertion point down there. I'm going to put my insertion point after the word travel, but before the period. And again, now I'm inserting a citation. I'm not inserting a note. I want to cite the source of my information for this. Again, so when you're citing information, it comes inside the period. So here, I'm going to go ahead on my reference tab. I want to make sure that I'm using the MLA formatting. And so like right now, the main style sources are MLA and APA. If you're in a liberal arts education, you'll primarily be using the MLA, the Modern Language Association. If you're in a sciences based, you'll be using APA, which is the American Psychological Association. And those are the main different ways that we cite information. You know, sometimes newspapers will use the Chicago style, but for most academic purposes, MLA and APA are the ways that we cite documents. So we want to make sure that we've got MLA in this little area. So if your style doesn't say MLA, again, just click this little down pointing arrow and check MLA 7th edition. And really, this does need to be updated because we're currently in the 9th edition of MLA. We're no longer in the 7th edition.
Mm-hmm.
And so now we're going to click on the Insert Citation button. So in our Citations and Bibliography group, we've got Insert Citation. So not Insert Footnote, Insert Citation. And then when we do that, click on that Insert Citation, we can see we've got a couple options. So these are already sources that have been entered into this document for us. We want to say add a new source. So we're going to click on that thing that says add new source. And then when we do that, you can see it's going to ask us what kind of source we have that we're going to enter. And right down here, if we click on that little drop down, we can see there's a lot of different options: a book, a section of a book, a journal article, an article from a periodical, a conference that we've attended, a report, a website. I mean, tons of different things. We're going to go ahead and choose that we want to cite a report. So we're going to click on report. And then when we do that, it gives us the required select sections. And then there might be alternate sections that we could add later. I'm going to click on this. Since this report is from a corporation, I'm going to click on corporate author. And then in this corporate author section, and so right now, if you look down in this tag, we're not going to use much with these tags, but the tags are based on the year that the year the source was created and the name of the source. So right now it just says placeholder. But when we start entering text into this, you'll see that this will change. So we've got our corporate author, and we're going to type in, World Tourism Organization. All right, so when I do what World Tourism Organization, I'm going to click my tab key. And when I do that, you can see it changes my tag from placeholder 1 to WOR, W-O-R, again, because it's based on the author and the year. So once we enter our year, it'll change that tag again. So the title of our document.
Excuse me, how did it come down? I didn't have it. Maybe I missed something.
Which one?
The war down tag name. Placeholder.
So after World Tourism Organization, I typed it. I hit my tab key, and it brought me down to the next field.
Yep, I got.
Okay. All right. So now in the title of the document, the title is Tourism Highlights. And then again, I'm just using my tab. You can use your little mouse to click in spots, but since we're just navigating between fields, I just use my tab key. The year is 2017. The publisher is World Tourism Organization. Come on. right. The city is Madrid. The type is a white paper. And then the medium is print. All right, so again, we can see so mine says word 173. And the reason, yours probably will say word 17. The reason mine says word 173 is because I've done this project so many times that this same source is already in here 2 other times. So this is the 3rd instance of this source. So word 173, that's fine. I'm going to say okay. And then you can see right here, it adds that source right into my document. And if I hover over it, you can see that it's a field. It's an inserted field into this document. So, and if I click on it, I have this little option to do some modifications to that field. So with that one, I'm going to click on there. I'm going to click this little drop down, and I'm going to say edit citation. And then when I do that, it asks me what I want to do. So I can either add page number to it, or
Excuse
I can.
me 1 second.
Yep.
After I pressed OK, I got like World Tourism Organization between 2 parentheses, but also on the right of the page, I have it opens by itself researcher, and it's
That's
having
fine.
loading.
Yep, that's
It's
totally.
having this loading.
Yeah,
it doesn't.
So it's this thing right here.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, you can close that.
Okay. Just
yeah. So when you're doing, so when you're adding footnotes and citations, it's indicative of doing research. And so all that researcher option is doing, it's giving you hints on research. So you can, if that opens up, you can close it. If any of those little dialog boxes open up over here, you can just close those.
Okay.
Like
so when you, after that, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. So after that, I just clicked where it says World Tourism Organization, and it selects it. And then I clicked on the little down pointing arrow right here.
Yeah, what did you, after you...
And then edit citation.
Click on that arrow.
Yep,
okay.
Clicked on that little arrow and then said edit citation. And then here I can add a page number if I want to. And in fact, I do. I'm going to type in the number 19. And so that's going to add a page number. If I didn't want the author or the year or the title or something to show, I could say suppress. I'm okay with it right now. I'm going to say okay. So now you can see it says World Tourism Organization 19. So it's just telling us that that this information came from page 19 of this source.
Yeah, nice.
All right. So now I'm going to go down to the bottom of page 2. And then right down here, it says Source Center for Disease Control. So there's one source that's listed here already.
Yeah.
And then now below here, below this little table, I'm just going to, and again, I'm going to turn on my formatting marks for just a second. So you can see I've got a couple paragraph marks underneath this one. I'm going to bring my insertion point right in front of that first paragraph after that table. And then I'm going to type the word source. So I'm just going to type source and then colon and then space. Right. I want to make sure that this is italicized right here. So I'm just going to select it and italicize it. All right. And then I'm going to come up to where it says references, again, my reference tab. And then where it says insert citation, I'm going to click on that little down pointing arrow. Now this time, I don't want to use a new source. I want to use one that's existing. So I can just come up here where it says Margaret Johnson. We've already cited her somewhere else in this document. Now we're going to cite her again. So I'm going to click where it says Margaret Johnson. Bloop. And then it will automatically put Margaret Johnson's name right in here. And then this one, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to hover over her name, click that little drop down arrow, edit citation, and then page 35 or 55, excuse me, page 55. Okay. And then now we've got page number 55 for Margaret Johnson.
Yeah.
All right. So now we've got that. So we've got this information entered. So now we can go ahead and we can manage our sources. And then we're going to create a bibliography. So again, I'm going to quick save it. And so now I'm going to go Control End, and END, Control End, not Control N. If you do Control N, you're going to get a new document. I'm going to do Control End. That's going to bring me down to the very end of my document. And then here, when I'm here, I'm going to click on this Manage Sources. So in my Reference tab, Citation and Bibliography group, I'm going to click Manage Sources. And so here you can see all the different sources. So these are the sources that are up in the master list and then in the current list. And the ones that are in the current list.
I didn't notice. Where did you find it?
What's that?
The source manage, where did you find it?
So the Reference tab,
yeah. Okay.
Citations and Bibliography group,
yeah. Okay.
Right here, Manage Source. So I click on that. And then anything that has a check mark next to it means that we've cited it in this document. If it's not checked, it means we've used it, but we didn't cite it specifically. And then over here, these are the ones that we've added. So you can see I've done this a few times. So there's a couple different added things over here. I'm just going to come in here. I'm going to click where it says Mary Baker, My Adventures in Africa. I'm going to click on that one. Since we didn't use her and we didn't cite her, we can get rid of it. So I'm just going to say delete. Bloop. And then that deletes it right out of there. Okay. Now these other ones are good. I want to include them. I'm going to say close here. All right. Now.
How do you delete it? Just by pressing delete or what?
Yeah. So
I tried
so click the name and then just right here, delete. It says delete right there.
1 second. Yeah, I see. Press
so you want to do the Mary Baker one.
Yeah, I did it.
Okay. Then we can close that. All right. So then after that, we'll close that out. Now we're going to click on this bibliography option. So we're still in the Citations and Bibliography group. Click on Bibliography. And then here, we're going to choose the reference option. So you can see we've got Bibliography, References, Works Cited. We're going to click on where it says References. Click that. And then it automatically formats our document in the appropriate formatting in the MLA style. If we changed it, we could click on this right here and change it to APA, and it would automatically reformat the whole document. So it's a really, really cool feature. So I'm going to select the text that says References. So right up here, References. And I'm going to match the formatting to these other sections over here. So I'm just going to say in my Home tab, I'm going to change this to the Berlin Sans FB Demi. And it's going to be 11-point font. So I'm going to change it to 11. And then I'm also going to change it to that green accent 6 font color. All right.
Yep.
Then I'm going to go Control End to go to the end of my document again. And then I'm going to click in View in Multiple Pages so I can just take a look at my document. And so again, now we can see what this document kind of looks like.
Yeah.
So again, each page starts with the green heading, a new heading. We've got our references here. We've got our little image, the table we inserted with the note. And then here's our footnotes for the page 1. Got another couple footnotes over here on page 3.
The number of pages.
Yep, and then our page numbers on those pages. The first page doesn't have any page numbers or headers or anything. So that's exactly what we want. I'm going to go ahead and say save my work again one final time. And you can take off those formatting marks if you want, just so it's not muddied up. And that is the end of this project.
Mm-hmm. Would you please just remind me if I want to select like a sentence?
If you want to
Just
select a sentence, hold Control and click anywhere on the sentence. So if I wanted to select this, over half the arrivals were blah, 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 I would just come over it, hover over it, hold my Control key down, and then click anywhere on that sentence, and it will select the whole sentence, and only the sentence. So you can see that's a long sentence. But if I wanted,
just by holding Control and
hold Control and then select anywhere in the sentence, like that. And you'll select it by left mouse clicking.
yeah. It looks. But it's look like it